here. What's really surprising me are the passport bros, the passport bro community coming at me as hard as the bitter divorcees.
Here are three of the dilemmas that I've run into as an immigration attorney dealing with passport bros. A young man called my office who was getting ready to go on a military deployment. His wife at the time only had a 2-year residency, 2-year conditional residency. And he wanted to know if she was going to be able to travel with him because, of course, you have to have a physical presence requirement to be a resident of the U.S. Once you become a U.S. citizen, you can come and go as you please. But as a resident, you have to meet a physical presence requirement. And I mentioned to him that if she also planned to apply for citizenship, there was also another physical presence requirement that he needed to consider. At which point he said if they don't stay together, that he did not want her to be able to come back to the United States. So I want to talk about these situations as the ethical dilemmas that attorneys face, especially if you're a young attorney, and because the bar doesn't really offer us any guidance on what to do in these kind of situations. So I'm going to tell you all the situations first, and then I'll go back and tell you what I did in them. And so second situation, a man and his wife come in for a consultation. He does not speak Spanish. She does not speak English. And so I'm trying to conduct the consultation in both languages, translating his questions to me, and then giving my response first in Spanish, and then to him in English. Every single time I go to do the Spanish translation, he interrupts me with a new question, trying to force the conversation along in English. And so I had to stop him and say, I need to give her this information as well. He said that they were in a hurry. I said, well, you could come back another day. He got very upset by that, stood up and started getting aggressive. So that was the second issue, okay? It's the second time where I feel like I see an obvious passport bro, because why are you so offended by me giving her the information? Third situation, a woman calls. Her paperwork has actually already been filed, but when her husband filed the paperwork for her, he did not file a request for her to be able to travel while her documents were pending. If you don't know, if a person is filing for residency in the United States, they cannot freely travel anymore. They have to wait until they either have a travel permit or their residency card arrives. And so she wanted to get a travel permit done. The problem was that he had told her that if she traveled, then he was going to write to USCIS and withdraw her application. Okay, now let's go backward and talk about what I did in those ridiculous situations, and you can tell me what you would have done, because honestly, the bar does not offer us any guidance. We're just out here winging it with these type of situations. All right, situation number one. The man does not want his wife to be able to come back to the U.S. while they're stationed overseas if their relationship no longer continues. Included in that phone call, he told me that they had 2 children. So he effectively would be taking those 2 children away from her because they would be able to come back to the U.S. and she would not be able to come back. I told him that I really needed to speak with her to get a couple of dates straight. In the original consultation, he was unable to tell me the exact date that she arrived, the exact date at the start of her residency application. So I was like, oh, I really need to speak to her so I can get all of the dates down. But he figured out what I was up to, because I wanted to tell her like she needed to have her own attorney to consult with about her citizenship, residency, requirements to make sure she'd come back to the U.S. And he never called again. He never had her call. And unfortunately, I imagine that he was probably able to find an attorney who would give him the information he needed without being concerned about how he was treating that woman. Oh, that's the end of my infusion oil. Love this stuff. Second situation, this is the one where the man was giving me a hard time when I tried to translate to his spouse the questions that he was asking during the consultation. So for this, we went ahead and finished that meeting that day. And then I had a staff member call her. Later on during that week, I told the staff member, I want you to specifically try to suss out whether he's home or not. And then tell her that if she's dealing with any kind of abuse, then there are resources available that will be able to help her obtain residency if she left that relationship. Here, I'm in Washington, D.C., so luckily in this area, we have a lot of different options available. We have Ayuda, we have Mil Mujeres, we have Corazon, we have Catholic Charities. We have a lot of different options where people can go to do U-Visa or VAWA. U-Visa is if it's a physical criminal action that's being done against them, and VAWA is if it's any kind of abuse, doesn't require the police to be involved at all. At that time, she declined But at least she had the information for the future if things were to worsen. So that was what we did for that. In the third situation, this is the one where the woman wants to travel to see her sick child. But the husband was saying that if you leave, if you go on a travel permit, then I'm going to cancel your pending application. So I told her we can do the travel permit application for you, and we can use a different address. That way he won't see the receipt of when the filing is done and won't be aware of it. But the bigger issue, him saying he's going to write to withdraw your application if you travel, unfortunately, I can't do anything about that. I tried to talk to her about, is this a relationship that you really want to be in? Do you want to go the route of VAWA so you'd be able to travel while the application is pending? She really wasn't interested in hearing any of that. But again, at least she now has the information where she didn't have it before. So what would you do? What do you think?